Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride are the two best co-hosts that are out there right now. We have Dean Chambers and Mitch Grawl out there. How you doing this evening, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Doing great. And we have our special guest all the way from the west side. Even though he's running a team on the east side, we have Shawn Hamilton. How you doing, Coach?
Hey, how you doing, folks?
Doing great, doing great. So we've been kicking around a couple ideas and had some little funny moments pre-show. I know that the last show we had was I was out the net and the quality was a little bit off. Thanks for the good comments that you guys gave out and the positive feedback. There was an outtake that I was going to add for you guys on the second set, but stay tuned to the end of this show. There was two of them that we had in the last show, and we had one just a few minutes ago. So I think I'm gonna start adding a couple of those outtakes in there. So kind of give you guys a little peek what goes on behind the show. So with that out of the way. As you guys know that we're still in the off-season session. We've already had we got our things taken care of as far as the players that we need to cut. We've already started giving our franchise tags, re-signing our players. We have the draft that's coming up. And what we were discussing pre-show was a couple things, looking at the players that are out there for this draft. And also looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, looking at some of the basic understanding of designing plays. We decided it's going to do like a two-part series here where first one, we're going to just kind of kick the ideas around a little bit, what goes into designing a play, what type of play designs you guys like. We all know that's been in the league for a while. Shawn is good at designing plays as all of us, but Shawn really takes a special interest in doing that. So I think he'd be a perfect person to kind of give his insights on this and input on this as well. So those are two things we're going to talk about in this week's show. So but starting everything off right now, would you guys say that we should go ahead and start talking about the players that are out there in the draft? Also, I forgot to mention, also discussing some of these trades. We can start laughing at that because there was some trades that's been going on that definitely left some people scratching their heads. I know that we talked pre-show about that as well. So let me step back from the mic for a little bit and open it up to you guys. Go ahead.
I guess I need to take some of the blame for this whole notion of criticizing trades because, as you all know, I did make the comments on the board about a trade that surprised me that Steve had made for wide receiver Cedric Wilson from the Jets, and I kind of critiqued that a bit, and that started a little bit of an exchange between the two of us, which kind of ultimately cooled off. So, maybe I take some blame for kind of starting this issue, perhaps. But it is interesting to review some of these trades and to look at them. So I'll be interested to see what you three have to say about what trades you've been looking at and what's causing you to scratch your head, or which ones you really like, maybe.
I've scratched my head so much, Dean. All my hair is coming out on some of these trades, but that's okay though. That's all right.
That's good. You should probably refrain from doing too much scratching of your head.
That's right.
Yes, I know because I've lost a lot of it myself. So, Shawn, you want to get in on this, Shawn? What did you think of some of these trades that are out there, and which one kind of stuck out in your mind? I'm just going to kick this around to the three of you guys.
I'll go last. They're all interesting. I guess the value is in the eye of the beholder, right? So, we can scoff at or make fun of, but really the value is on the person trading and the trainee, right? There's obviously players out there, some of us will pay more for than others, right? There's evidence of that, in the few trades that we've seen and like wonder why. But I've made my share of bad trades, trade for players that I may have overvalued, or gotten rid of a player that I undervalued. So it's interesting.
And I think we need to follow it up by vote Hamilton 2024 with that nice politically correct answer to that question today. So.
All right. So what trade or trades has stuck out this off season that really has you guys scratching your head?
Well, I'll share some that have caught my eye. There's actually been quite a few, and I posted some commentary on the last PNFL newsletter. But I tell you, when you start to really step back and analyze some of these trades, even one when you first go, wait a minute, what's going on? If you do step back, though, it does appear that some teams do have a plan of what they're trying to do. And here's a great example. Okay, great example. Shawn, I'm gonna use you as an example. Okay, when I first saw that you picked up, a running back in his 8th year for a 2nd and 3rd round pick, I was like, man, okay, I know he's like the best running back in the league, but a 2nd, 3rd round pick for an 8-year running back, ooh, that could be steep. But you followed that up with getting the number 5 offensive tackle. You also followed up with some other trades that you got the number 15 guard out there. And so what did I do? What did I email you earlier this week? Hey, dude, you must be planning to run this football big time, going out and getting that running back in those 2 linemen. So, on the surface, if I looked at the Barkley trade, it went, what's he doing? Well, I might ask, what's he doing? But then I looks like he has a plan what he's doing out there. Yeah, he still might have given up a little bit more, but it's not like he just randomly said, oh, I need a running back. Let me go trade 2nd, 3rd round picks for a running back without kind of surrounding without that player for success. So that was something that stood out to me. So the NFC East better watch out, because Ground Hamilton is coming in the 2042 season. Otherwise, the trades mean nothing. A couple other ones. I mean, I think just overall, I think everyone has noticed that Las Vegas has been dismantling that team out there. Not saying that's a bad thing at all. I'll just say, looking out there, I think Las Vegas now has, and don't quote me, I guess, on this, but I think it's 20 plus picks in this draft, which is a large number, right? And so I hope for Las Vegas' sake that I hope they don't miss, because basically half their roster is going to be created from this draft coming up. And so for me, I hope they miss a lot, because that means good picks for me. But for them, they're putting all their eggs in this one draft class based on the trades they've made. And I think we've seen, sometimes there aren't enough players in a draft class to do that with. So that's like one of the things that caught my mind. But some other things, I've seen some top players in their last year, going for 2 points, 3 points, and some of the rich keep getting richer without having to pay a whole lot of money. So that's my thoughts. Dean, what are you thinking?
Well, the one trade that we were talking about in the pregame show, and I was looking at it, and it's interesting because I think it might confirm who they're planning on starting at quarterback. The New England's acquired quarterback Finley from the Jets. It was the Jets' backup last season, and they traded a 5th round pick. They acquired Finley in a 5th round pick for trading out a 2043 2nd round pick. So that's an interesting trade, and I think it indicates that that's probably who New England is going to start. And I'm expecting, as a result of that New England will not be drafting a quarterback early in the draft, although he may surprise us to do that too. Maybe you can start this guy and develop the rookie, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay. So, so what I have found out, and as I went through, because I think this offseason I've made one trade, and for me, my as I'm still getting into this with the game, and I've been in it for several seasons now. During the off season and before the draft pool comes out, I'm very wary about making trades because I want to try to build my team back up. I have a strategy of what I want to look at as far as my team, setting my team up. And some people will come up and say, hey, I have this position player that I'm offering you. He can be a starter, automatic starter, or he could be your number 2 guy. And it's like, well, thank you for offering it to me. He's like, yeah, I've been looking at your roster. I think you could use this or that. And even though it's intriguing, and you can easily get off your focus for what you're looking at as far as where you plan on taking your team, you can easily get distracted. And I think for the seasoned coaches that have been here for a while, you guys already know this. For the newer coaches, especially if you're getting back into the game after being away for years, and you may say, yeah, those numbers look good. And they'll say, yeah, he can, he's a good guy. He can be your starter. And the only price is your first and second round pick, or your first round pick. And you're like, yeah, he could be a starter. But then once you make that trade and you're like, oh, what the heck did I do? Now it's just completely thrown off my whole scheme. So if you're looking at trying to build up your offensive line and someone says, hey, I got a cornerback for you. Okay, I'll take it. Then you're just like, oh, I just blew up my whole damn draft now. And now you're kind of stuck with this guy and you can't get that pick back, or you make another trade to try to make it up. And then what the newer coaches will figure out is those draft picks are, I'd say they're gold right now, unless you're for sure you can find someone that meets your needs out in the free agent market or somewhere along those lines. Everyone's going to want to try to get those draft picks to build themselves back up. So for me personally, I've learned I don't like giving up my draft picks before a list comes out. Like I said, I've made one and I may make another one, but I'm not so sure. So is that something, would you guys agree with that, or do you have a different strategy as far as picking players for draft picks?
Well, Charlie manages the creation of the new rookies, right? And it's on a spectrum, right? So you can almost predict what the next draft is going to be. This is what I'm trying to say. Give or take, certain units might have a little bit more than others, but for the most part, you're going to have a player on there. I think it's a top 22 or 23 or whatever that number is that he starts to create the rookies from. But every draft is kind of look identical. I don't see over the last 5 drafts per se that there was any drastic differences between any of them for you to have to wait for a list to come out. You can almost predict what the draft's going to look like, based off of the last 3.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I feel a little similar to Shawn to an extent. I know from a player, and I mean, this is something we've been saying for a while. Even though we have seen some changes in our most recent draft pools over the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, we were kind of commenting before the show how if you look at the wide receivers in this year's draft, I mean, every single one of them, other than maybe just a couple or 3, are either maxed out of their strength rating or they're 1 point away from strength. Now, granted, strength isn't the number 1 rating for a wide receiver, but I mean, it's not like I think I said, well, it looks like all the wide receivers went to the gym before the combine this year, and so it's I think that'll change over the coming years, but yeah, the draft pools have not been dramatically different. But I will say for this year's draft, I know we'll talk about this a little bit more, a little bit later in the show. I think there are some positions this year where there is they're deeper. than others. And there's one position in particular, we're commenting with the show how, there's one player at this one particular position that stands out above everybody. But then the next player at that position, I mean, it's a major drop off from the top player at this particular position and that second best player. So that would be one. If you have a need in that particular position, hopefully you've already drafted them or you were able to pick up a free agent or make a trade, because you're likely, unless you've got a top 5 pick, you're not going to get this player in this draft. So anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah, I genuinely agree with what Shawn said. When I worked up the trade with you, Mark, that involved the 2 second picks, even though Charlie hadn't released the draft pool yet, I had a pretty firm idea of what value of player I would get with those picks. So I didn't have any trouble making that trade, even though I hadn't seen the draft pool, because there's a high degree of consistency from one season to the next, even with some adjustments and variations, but they're fairly consistent. So, I was able to make that trade and have a pretty good idea of the kind of value of player that I would get drafting with those picks.
Yeah, I mean, unless you went, 2 and 6, 15 or whatever, you and getting that top pick, and that's the difference, right? Because now it's like, I got the pick of the litter. I can get whoever, and then the draft really becomes important now, because it's like, okay, I got one of the top 3 picks, and either I can get a franchise quarterback, a franchise cornerback, or a defensive end. Which one is it going to be? At that point, I'll be like, hell, I want to see what the draft is going to look like before I move off of this first round pick. So that's my approach. What you're doing is not wrong, Mark. You value your picks, and that's how you build teams, is through the draft.
Right.
So, I don't fault you for approaching it that way. We all have our rhyme and reasons how we approach it, but that's not a bad. There's some teams that just don't make trades. That's fine.
Well, like I was saying, for me, I'll make trades.
Out on anything. Yeah.
Right, I'll make trades, but I also want to look at, first off, what's my objective? Do I want to win now? And if I want to win now, then I'll take that player that's, as they say, a little bit long in the tooth, that has those extra years, but he's almost maxed out. Or do I want to kind of build it up over time, and I'll take someone that's in the middle section of their years? Or if I know that I want to build something up completely, or from new, if I have several players in a position that's probably, guys that's in 9, 10, 11 years, something like that, I want to keep that pick, the first 3 picks or something like that, so I can build that back up. So for me, it varies. I mean, I have a strategy of what I want to do this season versus last season. For me, I had an objective last season that I wanted to run the ball more. Record didn't show up that well, but it was a tough division. But then I was lacking in my secondary on the back end. But my running game worked out. I mean, I had a 1,000-yard rusher, and which is something, because the year prior, I think the guy was probably half that, if not less. So that part worked, but now I got to go back and look at something else to fix another problem that came up on me, and to try to balance that out a little bit. So I have those ideas and those thoughts of which way I want to go with my team. And again, everyone has their own formula, what they want to do, how they want to go about it. And all I can say is just kind of stick with it. If someone brings something, we get that little shiny syndrome. Hey, I got this guy up here. And you're like, ooh, yes. And then you realize, oh, hell, I just screwed myself over. And now I'm stuck with this guy. So whatever your plan is in your head, kind of stick with it. There's nothing wrong with telling somebody no. So,
So Mark, is your advice, for Shawn, since last year you were really focused on bolstering your run, and it sounds like Shawn's doing that this year, that Shawn should plan for a 5-11 season? Is that what you're trying to tell him?
No, I wouldn't say. I tell you what, if Shawn would have been playing in the AFC West last year or last season, he would have been. It would have been tough because it was tight there for a while. And when I hit that 5-game losing streak, that pretty much put a fork in me. I mean, it's that the AFC West it's a tough division. It is tough.
So now are you saying you're insulting Dean because he left the AFC West and made it to the Super Bowl?
Nope. I'm just giving you my personal opinion, but if that's what you want to say, if he went over to the NFC side and figured he could just skateboard, and now I got pushed over there, even though I tried to fight to stay in the AFC, because I'm over. I'll put it like this: I'm over in the NFC now, so I got a rep for the NFC. But for last season, hey, that was the place to be. I mean, you get who's ever out there in that AFC West, you're gonna get knocked around, but you're gonna learn, and you get better. That tough competition breeds tough people.
So what you're saying then, what I'm hearing you say is that the NFC title game will be you and Dean playing in the NFC title game this year. Got it. Write it down.
In my mind, am I going to call it a lead pipe block? I'm not going to go that far, but in my mind, hell yeah.
Keep in mind the level of parity in the league. Keep in mind the level of parity in the league means that no one is doing any skateboarding. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, but I understand that, but you got to admit the AFC West was that was a slugfest for pretty much most of the season.
Murph skateboard. He skateboarded many seasons.
It was also the division where the Headless Horseman was leading in the division halfway through the season.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they were good. Thank goodness.
Thanks, Jerry.
Neil took over. Thanks.
Over. Thanks, Jerry.
Otherwise, me and Steve would have never made the playoffs.
Yeah, and that was an NFC East coach who developed those game plans, namely Jerry. So
yeah, thanks, Jerry, for creating that monster.
NFC East coach. The CPU team dominated for half a season the AFC West.
No, that was Dr. Frankenstein, Jerry, and that monster that he created that ran havoc most of the season.
Hey, no, that's the team that the Las Vegas has just dismantled in the last 36 hours.
Hey, you don't know. You may be thinking he's dismantling it, but there's a method to his madness. I'm trying to give him. Yep. Oh, and to start my trash talking. And to start my trash talking early. Now that I'm on the NFC West, I'm putting it down. I own San Francisco.
Oh, please.
Until my intern said until we get a better budget, we are owning San Francisco. I don't know who the owner is out there, but we own San Francisco.
Hey, now, Mark, don't be careful because New Orleans owned San Francisco last year, so I don't know how much that's saying.
We'll tag up. How you doing, Charlie? How you doing?
Just kidding, kind of.
Yep. All of a sudden, I start having players missing and plays not showing up. And Charles, I don't know, just crazy things happen.
Drop 50 burgers on y'all.
All right. So yeah, we're having a little bit too much fun here now. So let's go ahead and pivot over to our second segment of the show, and we're going to talk about plays and play designs. Everyone has their own strategy, as we just said in the previous section. How you want to have your plays set up and your scheme for it. Some people think about the real NFL. They go with the West Coast offense. Some want to go with a ground pound game. Somebody wants to go with an air Coryell. Some want to do a chuck and duck or a run and shoot. So. Or some may try and do a hybrid with a mix of all of them. As we were just talking a few minutes ago, for me, last season I wanted to establish the run because in the league, it's one of these leagues where everybody wants to pass. Everyone is planning for the pass. But if you have someone that comes in there and does the run, that will have, in my opinion, your opposing defense want to scratch your head like, wait a minute, they're not throwing the ball all over the place. And if they're spending all of their capital, their draft capital, getting cornerbacks, getting safeties to try to stop that pass, and they're not paying attention to that defensive line or to that linebacker, and you get a real powerhouse running back, and you can get a good running quarterback, and you can just carve them up with the run. And then when they want to try to change up, well, now they're off balance because they're built to stop the pass, not to stop the run. And then you want to try to mix it up a little bit. So my scheme for this coming season is going to change up because everybody knows, okay, he's trying to run the ball, so you got to mix it up, and you kind of mix it up from week to week. So what are some of the things that you guys think about when you're starting out the basic designs for your plays and determining if you want to go with pass heavy or pass medium or pass light, run heavy, run medium, run light? What are some of the basics that you guys go through in your thought process and in your play design? And this is for any one person started, and you guys just take it from there.
I guess I'll start then. The approach that I take towards play design, and especially started doing this more than an off season ago, would be to look at the weaknesses. For example, coming out of the 2040 season, I thought my offense was very weak, and there were a number of plays already in the play pool that I liked using, but I thought the play pool was short in some areas. So I came up with some ideas for primarily new passing plays, and I did work on some defenses as well. And a lot of those I submitted, over the last season, and they started improving my offense. Now going into this season, and this came as I was game planning for different games. Like when I was game planning for Chicago, I was putting in certain kinds of plays that I thought would work against his defense. And then I realized, if I had some better plays in this area or some certain plays of this type, it would be useful to have them. So a lot of times when I'm game planning and I'm seeing that I could use to have some plays that are more useful in this way or that way, or to fill certain needs and areas in the game plan, then that's when I put those basically on a list of plays that I'm going to try to develop. And I do some development during the season, but I really focused on doing it a lot in the off season. I've already developed quite a few new plays with this season. So a lot of it is kind of need driven. What areas of the game plan do I need to, make my running game more effective, make my passing game more effective, and so on. And then on defense, what areas do I think my defense could use some new plays in addition to what is already in the pool that would stop certain kinds of offenses more effectively? So then those are the goals. And then in doing so, the last few seasons, I focused much more on testing plays, because the more extensively I test them, then the hope is that I'm creating plays that are already proven to be effective before I submit them to Charlie. And that way, a higher percentage of new plays that I submit that ultimately will be successful, will be useful. Because I noticed in the past, I've submitted plays where maybe they looked good in certain games or certain testing I did, but then overall they didn't do very well. So I tried to focus.
Basically, you hit it on the nail, right? We want to submit plays that that are thoroughly tested. So if it's an offensive play, you load up a nice defensive game plan against it to test with, and then look at the averages, right? Base it off of X amount of sims, and how the testing process goes, and then hopefully you can make your game plan that week. If not, it's still thoroughly tested. It can be used another week. A lot of times I make plays that I don't end up playing with, and folks say, hey, you made this play, you didn't use it. Yeah, because it didn't make my cut that week for the game plan. That's largely how I approach it, and look for areas that we have a shortage of decent plays, 6, 7+ yards plays, and make plays for those areas, and come with different formation and looks based off of Madden plays maybe your own game plan for your NFL team, and try to bring that to the PNFL.
Right. The testing is huge because I do a testing system where I'm actually simming 500 games with 50 games per team and simming against 10 different teams. I'm using game plans that I've created by scouting other teams primarily. And the testing is really important to see if these plays are going to be good week in and week out against a variety of teams, a variety of defenses. And yeah, the ideas can come from a number of places. They can come from what I see watching football. They can come in looking up game plans and play design online. There's a number of sites that will give like diagrams of plays. And sometimes something or even sometimes an idea to think about. And sometimes I think, if I did a play that did this, it would be really great. And I go and create it in the play editor and test it. And the testing process often leads to surprises. What I think are great ideas that just completely fizzle in the testing, or sometimes ideas that I think, oh, this might work, it might not, test it, and it works great. And sometimes ideas that don't seem to work out well, it's a matter of adjusting, and it's a matter of making adjustments in it and sim it again, and then look at the stats, adjust it, and sim. You can do that until you get to the point where you're satisfied that the play is good. And lastly, sometimes my plays are like an experiment. Well, I'll just try to do something absolutely crazy. Like in the last offseason, I created a short passing play where I sent like two receivers as deep as they go 10 yards under the rules, and the other two just really deep. And I thought, what is that going to get? And I tested it, and it was completing like 17 yards per completion. This was a short pass, but the completion percentage was only like 35%. I said, okay, 35% is too low to be useful. But then as the play evolved, as I adjusted it, it got to the point where I got it up to like 50% and like 11 to 12 yards. And okay, this is useful to have a play on, pass short left that's like 52% completions and 12 and a half yards per catch. That ends up being useful. So then it ends up being a play that I quote pass. And when I say pass, it means that I'm going to put in a group of plays that I may be submitting to Charlie.
Okay. So your basic structure is you go through, you set your play designs up, you run the multiple sims. Now, as far as running your opponents, if you're picking a different team, so say that you're picking, I don't know, let's say Washington as far as your opponent. So what are you using from their side? Are you using the same game plan that you created for your team and using that against for your other team? So you're basically simming yourself as far as the playbook, but the personnel are different? Or are you looking at previous files, or are you looking at the whole, like the top plays from the league, and then adding those in? Because at the end of every season, that's generated. So do you pull from those, or where do you pull those
Generally,
from?
What I'm simming against, if I'm simming against Washington, then what I'm simming against is the last set of game plans that I created for Washington in order to scout Jerry's stuff and play him the last time I played him. So it's going to be a good, solid game plan, because what I do is I scout and I try to put in place the best plays that Jerry has been using, create a game plan that I think is pretty realistically similar to the game plan he's using. So that's what I'm simming against. It's very solid game plan. So if I run 500 sims, again, 50 games each against 10 different teams, and it's going to be 10 different teams. It's going to be like Washington, Chicago, the Jets, Oakland. Well, now Mitch's team is Kansas City, but you see what I'm saying? It's the good teams. I'm not simming against the teams that went, 3-13 last season. I'm simming against primarily the teams that have at least winning records, or at least like around 500 and up. So it's 10 teams out of 18, but it's the better 10 out of 18. And I figure if a play tests well with that, then it should be pretty good against most of the teams in actual games. And generally, the plays I've been developing over the last couple of seasons, that's becoming more true. The more that I'm doing this more extensive testing than what I've done in the past.
Okay.
So what he's saying, Mark, is he didn't practice him against your team last year.
Ha 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 ha. You are so lucky we don't play this season. especially from somebody who was talking all that trash about how bad they were going to beat Seattle. Hey, I might have been 5-11, but guess what? You didn't sweep me this season, and you didn't sweep me the previous season. So
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you took one of those L's from the Hawks too. So yeah.
Yeah.
He has to play me this season, so
That's right.
Yep. So he has to get ready for that and deal with that.
That's right.
So
Well, I'll give you some thoughts that I have because from maybe a little bit different perspective. All joking aside, y'all. I'm not big. I'm not a big. I'm not a big play creator. Not that I'm not big on play creation because I think you guys like Dean, Sean, Steve, Jerry, others. I know I'm forgetting some names that are out there that do tend to create plays more frequently. Thank you all for doing that. You all definitely have a passion around it and create some good stuff. Me, I've created a handful of plays and the last 10 seasons or so that I've been back in the league, just because I get frustrated, especially trying to create offensive plays. I've created some defensive plays I think work pretty well, but I just get frustrated in trying to do it because I'll practice against them once in the defenses and it's like, all right, here we go. They get another one. Oh crap, this place stinks. So where I end up most in a lot of my time, quite honestly, is the around plays. It's more of the game plan creation, and the way I look at it, I've got my little spreadsheet here pulled up, and for a run on offense, right? Minimum number of plays we can have in run middle in a game plan is 10. Right? There are 278 run middle plays. Now, I know there are probably some other creative ways we could do run middle plays, but if I only have to find 10 plays that work well against an opponent's, tendencies, I feel like, what? I could probably find 10 plays that work pretty well out of 278. So I spend a lot of my time on the repetition of practicing these plays from the existing play pool against kind of what Dean was saying. I create that practice game plan based on my opponent's tendencies. I know many of you all do as well. I have a few little programs that I use to do that, and I will practice a big chunk of these existing plays and really take that data and analyze it and go, okay, based on how I want to approach this team from a profile setting, the percentage of run versus pass and medium versus long, that kind of stuff, based on how I practice, which plays do I feel are going to give me the best chance to either move the ball and score or slow down the other team based on those practices. So I'm doing a lot of that simulation that Shawn and Dean are talking about when they're creating plays to do that. Just more of my time is spent taking the existing plays and practicing them against the opponent versus, say, practicing the new plays that are out there. So that's just kind of my approach on it, just because I get so frustrated when trying to grade a play. I figure I'll go to the part that really gets me excited, and that's the game planning side. So that's my
some of that too. But I'll give you an example. Mitch, you said you're frustrated creating offense, and a lot of times I've been kind of frustrated creating defenses. I remember in the last offseason, and I think Shawn will remember too, I tested out some new pass medium defenses, and I said, I'm not really sure of these. I showed him the stats. I said, I'm not sure if these are worth submitting or not. They might pan out, they might not. And he thought they were pretty good, so I ended up submitting them. And one of the plays, because one of the things I've done is I've looked over the season data that Charlie sent out, and this one play actually ended up being pretty respectable. It gave up a little bit more than I want against the run, but it gave up 5.0 yards, which is pretty solid on a decent amount of data against the pass. And it's AT32 PMR2. That was one of the new defensive plays pass medium that I developed in the last offseason. So, some of the plays ended up getting used quite a few times and ended up putting up some pretty respectable stats, even though there were plays that when I developed them and tested them and, you know, I didn't think the stats were quite as good as what I wanted, but, you know, sometimes they still do pan out.
Well, and, you know, and something else you had mentioned too, whether it's creating a new play and you're trying to determine whether it's one worth, you know, submitting for the play pool, or if it's, you know, you're trying to determine whether it's something you want to put in your game plan for the week. I think there's some mistakes that folks might make in determining what is a successful play. And you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Well, I know the example you shared, Dean, was how, you know, you were creating that pass short left play, and how initially it was like, oh man, I'm getting like 20 yards of completion, but oh crap, it's only like a 30% completion percentage. Well, okay, ain't no way I'm going to pick a short pass play that's only going to get a 30% completion percentage, right? So you adjusted it down. I think you said in the 50. I probably still wouldn't pick that play in my short pool, but I think, you know, when I'm practicing against other teams, one of the things I notice from certain teams, ones that tend to have a tough time scoring, are all right, their pass short plays might be a high percentage completion, but all right, it might only gain 5 yards. Well, then their medium pass plays, okay, it might be like a 50 or 60% completion, but they're only throwing it about 10 yards, you know? And so you add those up, right? Well, heck, all right, you're getting completion percentages around 60% of the time for nearly 6 yards. You ain't gonna move the ball anywhere. Right, your completion percentage might look pretty good, but you're not moving the ball anyway. And so that's one of the things where I had to adjust what I considered successful plays for my medium passes. Where a few seasons ago, honestly, I was one of those teams that, hey, look, it's gains 10 yards of completion or 10 yards of completion and a 60% completion percentage. Hey, I'm going to use that. I've bumped that up now to where if a pass medium play isn't gaining probably at least 15 yards per completion, I'm not even going to consider it in my game plan. Not even going to consider it.
Yeah,
granted, I still want to have,
you gotta play the averages. There's no hidden secret, right? You talk about finding plays that, you know, it's all in the season's total, right? There's no magic. You don't gotta go searching for these plays. They already show you. And you want an example of a successful play? Look at the season total. It has a whole season worth of data for you to view, and you like, hey, I want to make a play that's similar to this, that's going to give me similar yardage. So you dive in the play and you make sure that the structure is the same, and you make some changes, right? But then you go back and test, and hey, you just improve the play by 2 yards or 3 yards, you know, something like that, and you know, it's a successful change. And you don't got to guess. You don't got to. I wonder if this play is going to work. Yeah, it's going to work because it was based off a play that, you know, worked against a whole season's worth of six.
Remember that playing that, and I submitted several short passing plays that, you know, were designed to complete for like 5 or 6 yards, but at a high percentage. And I remember you making a comment about whether or not I was going to allow Justin Fields to throw anything longer than 5 yards.
That's right. And you did this past year. Look what you did. You got to the Super Bowl.
It's been an honor. Thank you all for having me on the show again.
Actually, Shawn, we are about to wrap it up anyway. We are well over our time. So as we're going to wrap this up right now, I mean, we could have gone on at least another 15, 20 minutes. So, I want to thank, I want to thank.
Doing that.
No. We're gonna. Well, this is something that we can do for part 2. So, as we come to wrap it up, so as we are coming to wrap the show up, I want to thank Shawn for coming on to give us his insight this week for the show. And if anyone has any last words, any last words over there, Shawn?
I learned something every time I rap with you.
All right, Dean, anything you got over there?
I would say, I agree with the idea that we should do a part 2 on this and maybe focus a little bit more kind of in-depth focus on actual play design process and some ideas that, you know, are put in place with how to create, in my case, it would be focused more on how to create effective passing plays.
All right.
But others, we could probably have someone like Barney on who could discuss creating effective defenses, and there are others too.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Yep. And Mitch, any final words before you take us home?
Let's get it.
All right, guys. So I'll give a countdown. We're going to start, and I don't have a timer program on here, but I will have it on my phone, so we'll get that started with the timer. We'll do a 35 minutes. If we do less than that, that's fine, but the general is just going to be for 35 minutes. So, again, we're not going to have any audio of the intro. I'll add all that in later. So, is everybody ready?
Yep.
Yeah. Boom, ba-ba-dum, ba-ba-dum, ba-ba-dum. All right.
Okay. We're gonna start in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I am your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride as usual is Dean Chambers and Mitch Graw. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Hey, good evening. I hope everyone has gone out and bought their Wolf and Shepherd, our newest sponsors.
There you go. How you doing over there, Dean? Uh-oh. Do we have Dean?
Apparently not too well tonight, Mark.
Dean.
Luckily you have a backup host this week, Mark.
Yeah,
so
Dean's
that's
getting
good.
this stuff set up. We have James Bloomer on here as well. How you doing, James?
Good.
Good. Dean, we can't hear you, Dean. Are you out there? Uh-oh. I think he's going to jump back in here, so actually, let's go ahead and hold that off.
He's actually out buying some Wolf and Shepherds, Mark. He heard there was a sale.
There you go. Dean, are you there? We cannot hear you. Let me see.
Maybe he's making another trade with Chicago.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. He's running out of top 100 players to trade away there, James. I don't know.
Let me hang Dean up and then bring him back in. Hold on. Okay. Are you there, Dean?
I'm here.
All right. You there, Mitch?
Yes. Yes, I am.
You there, James?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start this over then. Let me pull this back up. I don't know what happened, but we'll get it restarted. All right. So we'll start this off in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I am your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride, as always, are my two co-hosts, Mitch Chambers and Dean. Oh, fuck. Hold on. Oh, my goodness. All right.
You're going to call me Mitch Shepard here in a second. That's okay.
All right. Let's do this. All right. So, in 3, 2, 1.